Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Pipe Wrench, Junk Be Gone, and the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the Sports Source here on the Paper Begone Studios. We appreciate you joining us. It's only a 1-hour show today. There has been an ABC programming change here kind of late in the game. I know if you're like me, the ESPY nominations, it's like Christmas. So the ESPY nomination show, not the ESPYs, mind you, the ESPY nomination show will be coming up at noon. So we're only going to be an hour today, and I am thrilled about it, just thrilled. I know you are too. We're going to have a lot of recruiting to talk about today. We're going to have a lot of conference realignment, obviously, with what's going on in the landscape and basically how all that relates to Tennessee moving forward. So that's what we got. Let's dive right into it. First segment of today's Sports Source is brought to you by our friends at Junk Be Gone. This is the final month for this Sports Source set, folks. Take it in while you can today. It's been a great home for 8 years, which is an eternity in television, but we're moving to a new, everything, music, set, lighting, everything, here in a few weeks. And the question is, how am I going to get something so big? This set is huge. How do you get this out of here? How do you get it out of the WATE studios? You call Junk Be Gone. Because as I've told you for years now, not only do you use Junk Be Gone for a driveway dumpster, if you've got some demolition work to do, they can do that. They send teams out, small demolition. They're not going to bring down a building, but they can bring down a set like this. We'll show you how they do it in the weeks to come. But trust who I trust, Junk Be Gone. You can read more about them, learn more about them at junkbegone.biz. All right, let's welcome in the first round of panelists. Well, it's an hour show, so this is our only round of panelists. You'll have to make do with these guys.
We're the best round.
There you go. That's right, the final round. Josh Ward from 991 The Sports Animal, Ryan Callahan from GoVols 24/7, and Vince Farrar from 991 The Sports Animal. Thanks to all three of you for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
here on the 4th of July weekend, and in case we run out of time or I forget to say it at the end, have a happy and safe 4th of July. There, got that out of the way. That'll get us quicker into the ESPY nominations. All right. I was going to break down a lot of recruiting off the bat, but I thought let's postpone that for one segment. The world has changed. It's kind of the 1-year anniversary of NIL. People were looking at it, wondering about it, and then all of a sudden, our friend David Ubben, who's on the show, drops a bombshell in The Athletic because he gets he gets insights into Spire Sports, the UT group. He puts it out there, and it's really just starts this chain reaction of stories all over the country about collectives and how they're being put together. And for months now, Spire Sports landed with a big splash. We've heard, the rumor is, of course, they paid $8 million over a 3-year deal to quarterback Nico Iamaleava. We're expecting huge things. My question is, has it lived up to the hype from a Tennessee sense? And I ask this because I'm looking at 24/7's recruiting rankings today. Tennessee's 12th in the nation, which is kind of where Tennessee always is. I look at the big list of the recruits they've got, and we're going to break this down later. A lot of 3-stars on there. Nico was supposed to be Mr. Coattails. I'm not seeing it. Am I looking at it wrong? Is the hype more than the action? Has there been more sizzle or more steak on this thing to date?
Well, I do think it has benefited Tennessee. If we're talking about hype, I think there probably was too much hype because I think there was an assumption by some fans that NIL will just deliver this guy, that guy, and it might with some players. I do think that can be part of it. But I think like in the older days, a year ago, and
the olden times.
That's right, when players were just getting money under the table, I think the idea was that, okay, well, this school would go buy this player, and really it would be, well, this guy could get this kind of opportunity from this school and that school, and then ultimately he would just choose the school he wanted to go play for. And I think a lot of times with the name, image, likeness, there will be opportunities with a Tennessee and with other SEC schools and other Power 5 schools where there's an NIL opportunity, but it's similar to other schools, so they're still going to choose the school they want to go to. But I do think overall, Tennessee benefits from NIL. When I say the hype was too much, if it was just, okay, that means we automatically get a top 5 class, that's asking too much. Part of the problem is there are 5 spots to be in the top 5. And Ohio State, and Bama, and Georgia, and Clemson, and several others. Texas A&M. They expect to be there too.
Texas A&M, Oregon, Tennessee are three of the ones you always hear in terms of great collectives already lined up. But Ryan, you said on the show a few months ago, I made the statement that you've got an advantage right now. You had one that was believed to be you were the leadership, and you still are one of the better collectives. But you better take advantage because everybody's going to catch up. And you said they may catch up quicker than you think, John. Seems to me they've caught up quicker than I thought. Seems like in terms of looking at Tennessee beating out these other schools, looks like everybody's dealing back to maybe it lifted you to get into the ball game with some of these guys, but in the end it's still somebody choosing between Tennessee and Ohio State.
Yeah, and like you said, some schools have figured this out and gotten caught up quicker than maybe expected. So it's one of those deals where it was going to happen eventually. It's just a matter of whether it was going to happen this year or next year or whatever. And so Tennessee getting off to a good start helped, but it was a temporary benefit. And so I think now that it's a more level playing field, I will say that, and it's going to continue to be leveled out a little bit more. So, and the other thing is, as Josh said, some of these players are going to pick the school they want to go to. If the opportunities are similar, sometimes if they're not even that similar, sometimes they just want a good opportunity at the school they want to go to. And there are only a select number of players, I would say, who are just looking for the most money they can possibly get, and that's all. So it has its limitations. At the end of the day, Tennessee still has to chip away, get its program back into that national discussion, show it can get players to the NFL on a consistent basis. There's no replacement for that, even NIL in many cases.
A lot of people believe that NIL was going to be the elixir that magically healed the program. It hasn't lived up to that, I don't think, Vince. Do you believe so?
No, and with hope and with frustration, you elevate your hype because fans have been looking for any sort of hope to make it a difference, so you buy in a little bit more. And plus there's the unknown. I mean, it was kind of blind hope because a lot of us didn't know how this was going to work out. But
a lot of the collectives aren't running in the same way either. I mean, you've still got some schools that have dueling collectives, so everybody's figuring this out on the fly.
And kind of to that point, Spire Sports put out recently that in the last year, because this all started with NIL July 1st, that they have put together and given out $3.6 million in NIL dollars to 126 student athletes. It's about $29,000 per. Now we know that's not even across the board.
There's another $8 million hanging out there somewhere, supposedly.
Right. And then another thing is, how does it executed through Spire Sports at the University of Tennessee for these student athletes? If they continue to deliver and there's a good reputation for it, maybe that kind of gets passed along, and maybe that could be a little bit of a difference maker down the road. But it hasn't delivered we're going to be the number one recruiting class that maybe some people, I think, just unfairly thought.
Well, Texas A&M pulled that off last year. There was some talk after the Carnell Tate thing, after he went to Ohio State, that had people freaking out a little bit, that suddenly Spire Sports in Tennessee weren't being as pedal to the metal on the NIL front, possibly because, and we mentioned this on the show, the NCAA is already on your campus. Now there's starting to be people wondering, don't we need guardrails? What about boosters' involvement in this? Can you go over the line and make an obvious inducement? And Tennessee, by doing that story with David in The Athletic, made it pretty clear, we're going to do everything you can. Then it kind of pulled back. Ryan, I'll ask you because you cover recruiting more closely. Have you noticed a change in the way they are handling the deals over there? Or is that the rumor or the word out there in the recruiting circles, that Tennessee is going about it a little differently? Miami seems to be two middle fingers up at the moment, for example. Is Tennessee soft pedaling this a little bit at the time, or no?
No, I don't think so, and I think that's the misconception that's out there. Well, a couple different misconceptions. Earlier this year, I was just going to say, I think the misconception was that Tennessee had that $25 million figure was thrown out there by the Spire guys in the athletic story, and I think that got people to thinking Tennessee's already the big stack bully at the poker table, and that's not the case. I think that's that number Vince threw out, the $3.6 million they've given out, shows more realistically where they kind of are right now in the fundraising and building of this thing. So they're off to a very good start, but other teams caught up, and it's a more level playing field. And then, I think just with and I lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
No, it was about has Tennessee slow played a little bit?
Yeah.
But it seemed like the Athletic article was very mouthy.
Yeah.
It was, hey, we're doing all this. Then the NCAA stuff popped up, and it's like, okay, we're dialing it back. We're playing by the rules. Yeah. UT is working with them, but UT's not saying, they're not driving people specifically to them.
So that's where I think they've slowed down a little bit, and I think it's been because of the investigation a little bit, wanting to not continue to attract too much attention. It's, you haven't seen Josh Heupel put his arm around Spire, and that's frankly frustrating some people, I think, involved in the process. But Tennessee still, I don't think much has changed in terms of day-to-day operations. You're just trying not to attract too much attention, and that's, I think, coming from the administration at Tennessee. So there are some things that are being reined in, but it's not necessarily in the day-to-day operations.
Well, and I'll defend them on that fact. If you've got the NCAA already investigating you, you may have to pull back, whereas somebody else can, Miami can go throw birds at whoever they like.
What you can't have is have this add to your punishment that's still pending from the NCAA.
Bingo.
And I'll say real quick, the results. Sorry, Josh. Yeah. The way what we're talking about with the results, it may change here this month.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of commands on the table, and we'll talk about them. But our view of this, in terms of the results that have come from NIL, may change depending on the haul that they might bring in over the next few weeks.
Josh,
just want to make sure people know the NCAA has been to Miami. The big booster, John Ruiz, confirmed the NCAA's come down there. You don't want the NCAA coming back to Knoxville.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. In Miami, they didn't call it an investigation. It was an inquiry or an interview with their big booster who said, hey, we're doing it all by the rules. Right. But in Tennessee's case, there's an open investigation, which is not the case at Miami. So, yeah, it's a different deal. All right, when we come back, let's do a deep dive into the guys that Vince and Ryan and Josh have been talking about. It's a big month ahead. All right, who has Tennessee in the past month? Who's Tennessee grabbed? Who have they missed on? And who's next? The big names. We'll look at that, and we've got much more to come in terms of team building in the SEC and the SEC East. Where's the momentum? Where's Tennessee compared to their East rivals? We'll get into that too. Come on back on the Sports Source.